Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. It is time for me to start setting up for 2019. So I am going to do this first video, basically what I'm going to put in my 2019 setup, which as you can see is going to be in a couple of different notebooks. I'm going to explain some of the changes that I'm making. I also will go ahead and give you guys a time lapse showing how I'm going to set up my new bullet journal. I'm going to go into that more later. But also stay tuned because I am planning on having a January plan with me that will be separate because this is going to be a big long video, like just be prepared. So I will put timestamps down in the description box, so if you guys want to jump around and see different things, you can do that. Otherwise, let's get started. So one of the first things that I like to do when I'm preparing for the next calendar year is to do a couple of spreads in my current bullet journal to help me sort of get my thoughts in order. So I have a couple of things in here. One of the first things that I did was to start sort of writing down ideas I had for 2019. One of the things that I've decided to do this year that it actually did happen last year, but not on purpose, was to start a new journal. So last year, end of 2017, going into 2018, it actually worked out that I wasn't going to have enough pages left in my journal to actually do January in my current bullet journal, so I went ahead and I started a new one in January. This year, I actually still have about 100 pages left in this bullet journal, and I'm still only, the second week in December, so I still do have a fair amount of dailies and weeklies left in the month and potentially collections, so I will use up a fair number of pages, but I will potentially have a handful, maybe even about 50 blank pages left by the time I change. And even though it's not my favorite thing, I like to finish up my notebooks before I move on to the next one, I did really want to try out intentionally this idea that for the new calendar year, I was going to start a new notebook. This was something that as I was reading through the bullet journal method, writer talks about starting a new journal in the new calendar year, and so I decided to give it a go. We'll see how it works. I also actually had a lot of things that I wanted to change between my 2018 and my 2019 setup, so I thought that would be a good opportunity for me to put some of these changes into place. So I started by going through some ideas, some things that I knew straight off the bat that I wanted to change. The first one is this column here for my personal bullet journal, and basically that I'm going to start a new bullet journal. I had a couple of ideas for things I wanted to change in terms of my front of bullet journal collections. I also had the idea that I wanted to change how I do my tracker, which you guys will know I actually changed it for December, and that's kind of the tracker that I'm planning on using next year. So I wanted to test it out and see how it works. So far it's been working pretty well. I think I am going to keep it for January, but that was one of the things that kind of came up in this idea brainstorming session. The other thing is I had a couple of my other bullet journals, so specific themed bullet journals that I wanted to make some changes in. So one of the big ones I do is I have in my home bullet journal, I have year-long collections. I've been doing for the past 2 years a cleaning tracker, so basically I have like just things I need to clean in my house, but also tracking things like how often I buy sponges and how often I change my kitchen gloves, like random stuff like that, and also financial stuff. So I actually have a sort of overview of my budget for the year, as well as what I call a taking stock, so checking in on my net worth, thinking about some of the big financial goals I'd like to work on during the year, and I also have another spread of my income. Now, that is actually going to change, and I'm going to kind of walk through that in a little bit, but I started thinking about that in here. One of the biggest things is that I want to completely drop my cleaning tracker in my home bullet journal and have it as part of my monthly tracker. So that was kind of a big one. One of the other things is I actually technically have had a social media bullet journal that I was using where I would have my YouTube workflow, I would track like certain stats and stuff, but I realized that I just wasn't using it, and so I am essentially going to retire, or I have actually retired that particular bullet journal, and the only thing that I'm actually keeping from it that I use on a weekly basis, let's say, is my YouTube workflow. So I'm actually going to just incorporate that into my regular bullet journal. I also took this opportunity to go through all of my notebooks, old notebooks that I had finished, There are certain ones that I definitely want to keep, but there are other ones that I really just didn't want, and they were just taking up space. So I went through those. I went through a couple of my other open notebooks, so things like my social media bullet journal. I wanted to kind of deal with those and decide, are these actually things that I'm using, or am I just holding on to them because I started them and I feel bad getting rid of them, kind of thing. So one of the ones that I actually have since gotten rid of is my health bullet journal, because I realized the only thing that I really need from that particular, all the spreads that I had in that particular notebook were my medical record spreads. So what I actually did is I tore those pages out, and I'm going to start a new bullet journal that is specifically for when I go to the doctor. So I have records of all my past appointments and stuff. So we'll get into that a little later as well. The other one is my collection bullet journal. I have been working on a 101 goals in 1,001 days for the past year. I think I started September of 2017, and it's been going pretty well, but I've been realizing the more I've been reading about like habits and productivity and the bullet journal method, like all of these other things, and just kind of working my way through it again, is that I really need shorter term goals. So what I'm going to do this year is actually do a year-long, not even necessarily a goal challenge, because some of them are going to be things that are going to take longer than a year, but I'm going to kind of refocus how I want to make my goals. So a lot of the collections that I have in my collection bullet journal are not what I would consider active collections. They're reference collections, and I'm basically taking all of my active collections. They're essentially going to be retired, except for my new reading challenge. And I'll give you guys a quick flip through in my collection bullet journal so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, but that was a big difference. So that was just kind of my general, like, first off ideas. Then what I went ahead and did is recently I decided to sort of start planning out. So one of the things that I did last year is in my home bullet journal, I had my top 3 goals for 2018. And these were, it was 2 financial goals and 1 like home goal. So it was, I wanted to save 10,000 euros. I wanted to contribute 1,000 euros to retirement, and I wanted to clean my house my apartment every 2 weeks. Now, I don't look at my home bullet journal very often because the collections that I have in there are more long-term. They're not things I look at even every week. And so I did pretty well on the saving side, but my cleaning goal, it was like it didn't exist after I had set it up at the end of December of last year. So what I want to do this time is I have 5 goals for the year, like 5 big goals. So this is kind of like, instead of picking a word of the year, these are the 5 things that I really want to get done this year. Now, some of these are things that I have complete control over. Some of these I have partial control over, and some of these are things that I can help along, but like it's kind of out of my hands. So my goals are that I'd like to move apartments. So I want to still stay in my town, but I want to move to a bigger apartment. I would like to plan and actually go on a trip to Korea next October-ish. I want to make my first font, so go through the font making program that I purchased and like learn how to use all of the software and actually make a font. I'd like to save 7,000 euros, so I lowered my yearly goal. Ideally, I'd like to do more, but I feel like I need something that is going to feel attainable so I don't get discouraged. And also just, it was kind of an arbitrary number, honestly. And I would love to hit 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. Now, moving, that's mostly in my control, but I also need to save money. So like a lot of these goals are kind of like linked together, but these are kind of the 5 things that if these things happen this year, I will consider 2019 like an absolutely awesome year kind of thing. So that was my first sort of intro page for my spreads. And then I went through and I looked at what I had set up in my current bullet journal for my front of bullet journal collections, and I decided what I wanted to keep and what I didn't, essentially. So one of the things that I realized pretty quickly on was that I am planning to use this stealth bullet journal. It's the one that I got in the collector's pack with the bullet journal method, and it's got this like awesome all black look, which obviously I love. Let's just take a look. So actually, a quick detour. We're gonna just take a quick peek at this journal because I think a lot of you maybe haven't seen this. So it just is all black. I love that it has the little, oops, can you guys see it? It has the little lightning bolt on the side there. But the inside is all black, so all of these pages and even the back pocket are, oh my gosh, I can't even open it, and the back pocket are black. It does still have the 3 bookmarks, so in red, red. What am I talking about? Black, gray, and white. And then the rest of this is just the same. It's an official bullet journal. So because I wanted to use this journal, one of the things that is different, and one of the things I actually do really like about this, is that it starts on a full spread. So, oops, here. So the first full spread is actually page 1 and 2, whereas in most standard Leuchtturms, the first page, you actually have page 1, and it is just that one page, so you have an odd number. And so because I no longer have this one single page, it goes directly into this future log, I decided that for the first time ever, I am going to not have a year at a glance. It's one of those things that I have been using, and I do actually refer to it for certain things. However, I recently decided to buy a little tiny wall calendar. It's literally like this big, and then when you open it up, obviously it's a little bit longer. And so I can just use that to look at for when I'm doing my monthly setup and that kind of stuff. So I was like, you know, there's really no reason for me to write out a year at a glance calendar. You know, it used to make sense because I didn't have a wall calendar, but now that I do, there's no sense in like making this extra work for myself essentially. So that was one of the big changes. You'll notice here in my first section, I actually just go directly into my future planning. So I'm gonna do a calendex and a future log. Even though there's a really, really high likelihood that I'm not going to be in this journal for the entire year, like almost 100% likelihood, I am going to do a calendex and future log for the full year. So I'm gonna have January through June on the calendex and July through December on the future log. And I'm going to use the second page of future planning pages or future log pages as my goal setup. So one of the things from the bullet journal method is this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 goal setting thing. So I actually did kind of an example of this, and I'm going to re-go through this, make sure everything's up to date and all of that, but this was just kind of an example that I did while I was reading the book the first time. So you basically split it into personal and professional goals, and you have 5 years, 4 months, 3 weeks, 2 days, and 1 hour. So as Ryder mentions in the bullet journal method, these are kind of approximate timelines. So it's basically really long-term, sort of short-term, and very short-term goals, right? Like it's not necessarily going to be the things that you do like an hour from now, but it's this idea like what are the most pressing things right now and what are the things that are going to take the longest amount of time to get through. So instead of doing my 101 and 1001, or instead of doing 52 goals in 52 weeks, I want to go through all of my open, like random notes with goals and things projects I'd like to work on, all that kind of stuff, and put them on here. And then basically what I'd like to do is I'm going to have this over here, and then a little bit later on I'm actually going to work on doing a quarterly goal spread, which I'll explain that in a second. So this is going to be my main, like my master list of goals for 2019. And again, because it does have long-term goals that are, you know, within the next 5 years, they're not necessarily all going to be things that I am going to be working on in 2019, but it's just going to give me an overview so that I can then choose the ones that I want to focus on this year. Then I'm going to keep my savings goals and finance tracker the same way that I always have. I'll have my calendex carryover page, which is where I just, let's see if I can find it really quick. So this, where at the beginning when I move over, if I have, for example, things that are currently on my calendex, that because I have January and February over here, if I have certain things on my calendex, I will just straight away do this, and I actually just use this to fill up with calendex items, and then whenever I finish that up, then I do it in the rest of my journal. So it's just kind of one of my little random things that I do with the calendex. I have my waiting for an espresso tracker. I have my YouTube calendar, so kind of my editorial calendar, how I plan out my videos. I have YouTube and Instagram tracking. I'm just kind of holding on to that. I am going to put in my YouTube workflow, which if you guys, let's see if I can find it. Here we go. So that is this particular one. So it used to be in my social media bullet journal, but now I'm just going to keep it in here because this is the thing that I use the most, basically. I am trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to do this, but I have my 100 days of flossing, which is supposed to go through February 14th, which means that I need to have at least I have another month and a half left to go on this tracker once the new year hits. So what I don't know is if I'm going to redraw everything. Like, I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do it, but because I'll be in a new bullet journal, I don't want to have to flip back to this one. I feel like it's going to break my stride if I have it in a different journal than the one I'm currently using. So I'm going to have this somehow in my new bullet journal, not exactly sure how yet. I have my library loan spread and my K-drama tracker. And then I also wanted to add down at this bottom section here, I kind of did this after the fact. I'd like to have a quarterly goals spread. And what I think I'm gonna do is do it on the pages just after this one, so right before my January setup, and to basically split it into take any of the goals from here and say, okay, in the first 3 months of the year, what do I wanna work on? You know, so quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4, and sort of refine it that way. And then I've also made a note here that I want to dedicate certain pages to project planning spreads, and I might thread them with my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 spread. So basically if I had something on this spread over here, and let's say it was, you know, my font making one, have that, you know, font making, and then say that was my quarter 2 goal, for example, I would have in parentheses a page number that would thread me to my quarterly goals, because that's going to be one of those. And then on the quarterly goal spread, I would have a page number linked to the actual collection that I made, starting to plan it out. I know that's kind of like probably not very clear right now, but once I actually work on setting this stuff up, hopefully that will become a little bit clearer. It might not be in this video, so if it isn't, I apologize, but I will at some point, because I'm doing kind of a new goal setting approach, I will try and do a video on that just to kind of show you how I'm going to keep track of things in my bullet journal. Anyway, so that is my personal bullet journal setup. I also do have my January setup, which is going to be very similar to December, and I will show you guys that later because that is not for this particular video. So let's move on. These are the other moving parts in my system. So in addition to starting a brand new bullet journal in January, I also will have a new reading challenge. So I currently track my reading challenge in my collection bullet journal, and let's see. So this is my 2018 reading challenge. I've just finished 68 books. My goal was to read 80, so I've still got 12 books to go, and it is currently December 11th, so might not hit that one. It's not the end of the world. So for this year, I actually did leave one extra page. I'm gonna set up another tracker on here so I can keep going, because I will still probably read a couple of books before the end of the year. So one of the things that I decided was that I was a little bit too ambitious this year. I just had too many other things going on. So I'm going to go back down to a goal of 60 books for the year, because that is pretty, like, I can usually do 60 books fairly easily. I would like to do 5 books in French, so I'd like to read 5 books in French. This year my goal I think was 20, and I honestly don't even know how many I've read. Let's see. I've only read 4, and I'm like halfway through a 5th one. So I think my goal was 20, and I've definitely not hit that in the slightest. I probably won't, so I'm going to be a little bit more reasonable, go back down to 5 books in French. I still, for the past like 2 years, have been trying to work on a book in Spanish, and I need to get a different book because the one that I had, like, I obviously was not gonna read. Anyway, long story. But I'd like to read 1 book in Spanish, 1 book in Italian, and I would like to work on reading in Korean as part of like learning and all of that kind of stuff. So I have in parentheses here that maybe it's like a comic, maybe like not a full-on book, but maybe like a manga or an online comic, or just something that I try to read in Korean to work on vocabulary and just like ease of reading Hangul and all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be my reading challenge. I will show you guys in my collection bullet journal. So one of the things that I had actually thought about for this year was I thought about retiring this collection bullet journal, because this bucket list is basically, I don't use this really. I need to focus on more like short-term goals. So like it's kind of bucket list stuff, but also just kind of like long-term goals that maybe I'll do someday, and it's just not very effective. This is old, so this is all like older stuff. I really don't refer to my reading, my list of books, and I have a ton of books on these lists. I have movies that I don't really refer to this, TV shows, I don't really refer to this anymore. This is done. These I haven't referred to in a while, like I might at some point, but for right now, like I just don't refer to them. I have this master list of meals. I don't really use this either. I do sometimes go back and refer to my recipes, so that's like kind of a decent thing, and I actually thought about doing a recipes journal, but I don't have enough recipes to warrant that. I have my 101 and 1001, which was supposed to go through May 29th, 2020, and I've made pretty good headway, but like I'm not going to use this anymore. Anything that really needs to get done will make its way onto my new goal tracker, so like it's not really necessary. I am not going to be doing the Rory Gilmore reading challenge. There's just a number of books on here that I don't really like to read this way. I like to kind of read the things that interest me at the moment, and if at the end it ends up being something that was on here, I'll check it off, but like this is not going to drive my reading habits, if that makes sense. Let's see, this was from 2017. This is one that I'm going to, because it's my 4-year overview, pretty much all of these need to go into my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 spread, or they need to just be crossed off, right? So this is going to soon be an obsolete collection. This is my 2018 collection, which I will finish at the end of the year. I don't really use this. This is also going to be something that goes into 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is going to be something that I probably set up differently. I do still use my K-drama watch list, but honestly, that means that the only 2 collections that I sort of actively use are going to be my 2019 reading challenge and my K-drama watch list out of this entire thing. So I do still use this when I pull out markers from my like big thing of Tombows so that I know where to put them back, but it's getting to the point where I don't really use this journal for a lot, and I'm getting near the end. So I was going to retire the journal, and I think what I'm going to do instead is just acknowledge that I have a lot of collections in here that are no longer relevant and leave them and just use it up to do things like my reading challenges, and then I'll decide if I need a new collection bullet journal after that, because I do like having my year-long reading challenges in one place and not in my personal bullet journal, just because I tend to go through more than one journal a year. So this was one that I thought about retiring. I am not going to yet, but I'm really basically only going to use it for my 2019 reading challenge. So, and actually what I did is I've penciled in here, I'm going to do my reading tracker the same way that I've done it for the past like 3 years, because this just really works for me. And I'm going to basically write in my goals for the reading challenge, which are these. So that's why I've already kind of labeled out on here. So that's my collection bullet journal. The next one that I have that I tend to set up once the new year hits is my home bullet journal. Now, this is one that I do like this one. I'm going to keep this one, but I am going to sort of reduce the things that I do in here. So you guys have seen my KonMari stuff. This was from 2017. Like just so this was my 2017 cleaning tracker. This was my 2018 setup. So like I didn't even keep up with my income for 2018, and then I've got my tracker over here. So basically, and then I have my apartment stuff. So I decided for 2019, I am only going to do my budget and taking stock pages, which you guys will see kind of the outline. You've seen the outlines of before. I'm just not going to flip back because it's got some personal information. But basically, I am going to drop my income tracker. So basically where I break it up into trimester and then I have a year-end review, because I use YNAB. And so all of that information is in YNAB. They actually have reports that I can look at to see like how everything is going. It doesn't seem to be necessary to actually do it again in here. I do, however, like having the budget and the taking stock on paper. I think that is still valuable information for me. I still will have sections for my goals and priorities for 2019, but that's the only, out of those 2 full financial spreads that I've been doing for the past 2 years, I'm only going to keep that one. The other one I'm going to drop completely is my cleaning tracker. So I don't refer to my cleaning tracker, like if I do something, I will then go back in and fill it in. However, having it in here means that it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and I just don't use it enough. So what I'm going to do is leave certain like key things in my monthly tracker and just not track it over here. Same thing with, for example, my Nespresso tracker. So let's look at that here. So like my Nespresso tracker, where I track over here how many sleeves I buy and how much I spend for the year, it's pretty stable. Like I drink roughly the same amount of coffee. I've done it for 1 year. I'll have it for the 2nd year, but like I don't think I need to do it for a 3rd year kind of thing. This is also another one that I tend to buy the stuff when it runs out. And like, it is what it is. It's stuff I need. It's not optional expenses for the most part. So like, I don't really need to track it. So this is one that I'm just going to not do because let's be honest, this is a ton of setup. I don't use it as much as I probably should. So why keep making it, sort of thing. So that's going to be my big change in my home bullet journal. I am, like I mentioned, I got rid of my health bullet journal because I had a bunch of spreads in there that I just really did not use. The things that I used the most were my list of like when I actually went to my doctor's and why, and then notes from my actual doctor's appointment. So like when they give me medications, I like to write in like I need to take this 3 times a day or once a day or whatever, and I do mini trackers in there. So all of the rest of it, I didn't really need, and so there was no point in carrying around this huge journal because it was like an A5 moleskin that I would have to then take with me to my doctor's appointment. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to try using this A6 Midori, and I'm going to cover it just because this like cream cover gets really beat up, as we have learned with my language log, and I'm going to basically just do my medical tracking in here because that's information that I actually need to refer to when I go to the doctor. The rest of it I honestly just never used. So this will be a new one. I'm not sure how much of this I'll actually set up on camera because it's like really straightforward and all the information that goes into it is really private, but just to let you guys know, I will be doing this. Then the other thing I have on here is my language log, and I actually am going to kind of keep that as is. So I've been keeping my language log in here with my Korean notebook. So I have, this is all of my Talk to Me in Korean notes, and then I have my language log in here. And as you guys can see, I'm about like roughly halfway through, but I haven't been doing a whole lot since about August. So like this point in August where I stopped doing quite as much as I was doing because I just needed a break. I really haven't picked back up a whole lot. So you guys can see I've got some information in here. September was really light. October I didn't do a lot. I was on vacation for this like entire section. November I did a little bit more. I started a new journaling page, and then now we're up to December. So I'm going to keep this as is, and what I would like to do is to brainstorm and set some goals, some like actual like very specific goals for 2019, and I've noted down that my priorities are Korean and Italian. So I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen with this yet. I don't think I'm going to do it in this video, but I will come back with an update on my language log situation at some point because it is something I would like to work on more in 2019. That's all that I have in here for the setup. The last thing that is part of my sort of yearly setup is not something I have to set up, but I'll go ahead and show you guys, is my some lines a day. So I have been doing this since January 1st of 2018, and I have actually done every single day. I'm actually super proud of myself. That one day that isn't there is February 29th because it was not a leap year. Let's see, where are you? Here we go. February 29th. That's the only one that I didn't actually fill in because it wasn't a day this year. So I am currently up to date. Let's see. So I'm filming on the 11th, which means that tomorrow morning I'm going to fill out this particular section. And so this is going to be the other thing that I do in 2019. I'm planning on continuing. I'm hoping to once again have a full year in here, because I think it'll be a really good record in the future. So that's what I'm planning to do for my setup. Those are all of the journals that I'm kind of using in general. I obviously do have other notebooks, but these are the ones that are most impacted by my 2019 setup sort of brainstorming. So what I'm gonna do now is basically show you how I have already kind of set up stuff in my personal bullet journal, and then I will go ahead and do the time lapse. So let's take a peek. So you guys have already seen a couple of my little sticky notes. So one of the things that I'm planning on doing, because I did have those 5 big goals for the year, I think I'm actually going to write them in this front cover in white gel pen so that they're really front and center. So I just have a little sticky note there. I'll have to fill this in. If we're being honest, I'm probably not even going to use this key. I have used the same key for ages and ages. I know exactly what everything means. I don't really use any special signifiers or anything like that, so I'm probably not even going to use this. I do, however, use my index, so I will work on filling that in at some point. And then I have penciled in a couple of lines here just so that I wouldn't have to spend a lot of time on camera counting stuff out. So for my future log, this is going to be for my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is my savings goals, finances. So basically I just have sticky notes for all of the things that I want to have set up in the front of my bullet journal. So that goes all the way through, oh, wait a second, hold on. I have to switch this because I added one more spread. So I actually have to just move all of, nerds. Oh, that was dumb, Caitlin. All right, well, once again, I got ahead of myself. So I think what I'm actually going to do is I will set up my quarterly goal spread after my January setup, because I've actually already penciled in stuff specifically for my tracker that I really don't want to redo. So that will be probably the only thing that you won't see set up in this particular journal. So it's not a big deal. It just means that how I had kind of imagined setting it up is not going to be exactly the way that it's going to be, but that's okay. Like, we can be flexible. It's fine. So I am, in terms of my actual setup, because I have this like stealth bujo, what I've decided is I'm going to do a black and copper color scheme for my front of bujo. So you'll notice this one I have my gray Leuchtturm, and I was doing gray and copper for everything. So just going to keep the copper, but switch to black. Okay, so I have the pens that I'm planning on using. So I've got my Microns, and I have a Tombow Fudenosuke, it's a soft tip, and my copper Faber-Castell. So that's enough chatting. I will time-lapse you guys and see you at the end to show you how it all came out. Okay, so I have set up all that I'm going to currently set up right now. Obviously, filling in all of my spreads is going to take a lot longer than I would want to do on camera, so I'll probably come back with an update at some point or give you guys a full flip through at the end of January or something like that. But for now, let's take a look at what I have so that I am ready once January 1st hits. So I'm going to take a little bit more time to figure out how I actually want to set up my top 5 goals in here. I was thinking about it and I'm not sure if I want to just list the goals or if I want to have some way of actually tracking my progress on them. So I'm going to hold off until I can kind of think about how I want to do that. I will finish filling out this page in a little bit. I just wanted to have my name in there at least. I obviously did not wait for that to actually dry. I have a little bit of transfer. So index is going to stay blank for the time being. I have my future log, so I haven't erased any of my pencil marks because I wanted to make very sure that everything was completely dry before I did that, because I have definitely smudged things accidentally by kind of rushing it. So I have at least set up my Calendex. I haven't done my color code yet down here, it's a pretty quick setup. It's going to be the same probably as my last bullet journal, and it's not really the most important part of this. Honestly, getting the setup is the most time-consuming part, so got that done. You'll see I definitely made a couple of mistakes as I was going through. Literally still have to wipe this out. There we go. It is what it is. You know, when you do stuff by hand, sometimes you make mistakes. So I have the entire calendar year on here, January through June on my Calendex, July through December on my future log. And I know I probably won't be in this journal the entire year, but I just wanted to be able to at least plan a year ahead so I could kind of see how things are going to pan out, you know, be able to put in the start of next school year, all that kind of stuff. So this I will definitely fill in probably closer to the end of this month. I have my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you guys might have seen me in the time lapse hesitating if I want to write in, you know, years, months, weeks, days, and hours. And I decided to just leave it blank for the moment. This is going to be my personal and professional goals. And I think one of the things I'm going to do as I fill this in is that I'm going to probably split professional into like teaching professional, my job, as well as things like social media. So I'll have to figure that out. But like I said, I will probably come back at some point and give you guys an update about how this is going, but I at least have the spread all ready to start filling out. I have my savings goals and my finances. I decided to drop that pending and owed section that I had down at the bottom because I was looking through and I have not used it in the slightest. So there's no point in keeping something that I don't actually use. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do here, but at least for now it's blank. Another section where I completely messed up on my counting. This is going to have just my standard trackers, but I'm going to wait until the end of the year before I see which ones need to get carried over, if I have new ones, etc. Calendex carryover, again, I will fill that in as I get a little bit closer once I kind of see how things are going. Waiting for Nespresso, those are pretty standard. So one of the things as I was going through, I wanted to do this black and copper look, but the only problem is, and you guys might notice it, my copper pen is looking a little orange, which I actually just got a new one, like, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or something like that, and I have been using it, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if the way I'm keeping it isn't right, if it's too cold in my, like, I have no idea if I'm getting a dud pen, but I feel like it's not keeping the color as well as they used to. So you'll notice as I go through that I kind of have less and less in copper and more in just black, and that's the reason why. So this entire spread, for example, is all in black. I've got my YouTube calendar, so until I actually post videos, I tend to do everything in pencil, which is why this is all that I have set up. I don't know what happened here. I definitely miscounted at some point and I tried to fix it and I don't think it did, but you know what? It is what it is. My YouTube and Instagram trackers, I didn't feel like writing out the whole thing, if we're being honest. Like, that's really the only reason why. This is another one that I'll fill in as I go. It's a really quick tracker. You guys have probably seen it before. It just looks like this. So it's one of those that's like super simple. I really just do the header then when I'm setting up the new spread. I have my YouTube workflow, which I did set up all, so it's all ready for me when I have videos that I need to start planning or things that I film. I left my 100 days of flossing blank because, as I mentioned, I'm really just not sure how I want to deal with it. I don't know if I want want to redo the entire spread from before or what have you. I've also been thinking that I might just redo the entire spread and then as of January 1st start a new 100 days so that I actually end up doing like 130 days or what have you. So because I'm not sure yet, I'm just gonna leave this blank, and I've left my sticky note so I know what is gonna go there, but I haven't done it yet. I have my library loans and K-dramas, and then the rest is going to be in January. So honestly, a couple of the spreads, like the YouTube workflow, that took a little while to set up. My YouTube calendar took a couple of minutes because of all like the lines and that kind of stuff. But overall, I'm really glad that I didn't do the year at a glance. That is definitely one of the most time-consuming parts of my like new bullet journal setup every time I start a new one. And now that I have a wall calendar, it really just isn't necessary anymore. Whereas before I could justify taking the time to set it up. Now it doesn't make any sense. So why make more work for myself kind of thing. So I'm hoping that this year I will, having kind of a different way of doing goal settings, I'm hoping that'll help me sort of keep on track and not lose things in, other journals and that kind of stuff. So I'm glad that I'm keeping the majority of my spreads in my personal bullet journal. That being said, I did set up 2 spreads in other journals. So the first one is my new reading challenge. So I did set up 2019 reading challenge, and essentially what I had in my pre-planning pages, and then I just went ahead and set up my very simple tracker. It works for me. It's super simple. It's fast to set up. It has the information I need, like why change it kind of thing. So I have this one in here, and then the last thing is going to be my budget taking stock. I basically just set up the headers for this one. Once I actually sit down and do my budget, I'll write in, because I do, budget as of and then the month and year. Once I actually sit down and do that, I'll fill that in. I'm going to kind of wait and see with my expenses because I think I'm going to have a couple things that are going to change. So I don't want to set up my dividing lines quite yet until I'm sure about that. Same thing with my net worth. The priorities and goals, I have to sit down and kind of think about still. So I've made the sections for them, but this is something that once I do my wrap up of my budgeting spreads for this past year for 2018, then I'll sit down and do for 2019. So I just wanted to have the basic spread set up, but it's going to be kind of a work in progress for a while. So that is essentially my setup. I am definitely kind of reducing journals. I will, as I mentioned, I will have my medical journal that I'm going to work on setting up, but that's not a 2019 specific one, so I kind of just didn't do that on camera. That's one I'm gonna have to think about how I want to actually set it up. But I am really pleased with some of the changes that I've made. I think that they're gonna work better. I'm glad that I no longer have my goal challenge in my collection bullet journal. I'm glad I'm gonna do it in my personal bullet journal. I think it's just going to keep it a little bit more front and center. I am so glad that I decided not to do the cleaning tracker. I think if it was something that actually made me clean more and be more effective in my cleaning, then I would have kept it. But as it is, it's just a ton of work for me to set it up, and then I kind of use it, but not really. So I want to try something different for 2019. I don't want to waste, the hour that it takes for me to set it up when it's just not something that's going to be as useful, I think, as it should be. I am, however, going to keep some of those budgeting things because I think they do help. Even if I don't look at them all the time, I think that the fact of sitting down in January of every year and just kind of re-going through everything, even if it's not something I look at all the time, that process of reflection gives me a lot of good information to help inform what I do throughout the year. And I do refer to it periodically, but because I have other ways of tracking my budget and stuff, like I do keep on top of it. I just like having that sort of state of affairs sit down with myself in January, and I like having a written trace of that. So that's why I'm keeping that one particular spread in my home bullet journal. The income tracker doesn't really make sense because I do use budgeting software. So those are the changes that I'm making. I hope that you guys are getting psyched for 2019. I think it's gonna be a good year. So let me know if you guys have any comments or questions, or if there are any spreads that I've talked about in here that you've seen the setup for, but that you'd like to see more in depth how I use them, or maybe see an update during the year. Leave it down in the comment section and I will try and make a video about that when I can. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a lot of fun setting up and making your goals for 2019, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. Hey guys, so if you've made it all the way to the end of this video and are actually watching my end screen and you're not subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you would. There's a little button right there for you to do it. And if you're interested in watching some more of my videos, I have links to 2 of my older videos off to the left there, so you can check those out if you would like to, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.